I'm Richard Lonsdale, Chairman of the Elm Planning Commission. I call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025. The time is 4 p.m. Staff, please take roll call.
Commissioner Richard Lomsdale.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Howard.
Here.
Commissioner John Graver.
Here.
Commissioner Dana Allen is excused. Commissioner Ann Warman. Here. Commissioner David Johnstone.
Here.
And Commissioner Christopher Lay will be here shortly.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everybody had an opportunity to read the attendance minutes? I have. Chris, do you need a minute to look over the minutes or did you look? Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Okay, minutes are approved. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the agenda? Okay, are there any conflicts of interest present with the commission and any agenda item? Okay.
Do we see any conflict of interest?
So there's no conflict of interest with the commission. Okay, staff communications.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I've got a few items. Just wanted to give you an idea of what's coming next month. So we'll be reviewing the housing chapter that you've been given tonight. So that gives you time between now and next month. We're hoping that if you have any written comments or questions, that you could get those to us within a week of the next planning committee meeting. So that's 3 weeks. Especially if you have questions, because that gives us time to, consider the questions. And if we need to look up information or anything, we can do that. So our plan going forward is, this is kind of the method we're going to use. What you'll get an introduction to a chapter with a copy of the proposed chapter. And then the next month, we will actually work on that chapter. And then that next month, you'll be getting another introduction. So next month, we'll be working on the housing element, but I'm going to be introducing the land use chapter and also the whole capital facilities chapter. Today, you have really what's kind of the meat and potatoes of the capital facilities chapter, which is all of the tables showing the things we plan to basically do in the next 10 years and what the funding sources are, whether it's grants or general fund, whatever. So, but each chapter of the comp plan also has goals and policies that go along with it. So next month, we'll see that table, but with the goals and policies included as well. And once again, you'll get 3 weeks to look that over and provide comments, etc. I was contacted by the Conservation District, and they're interested in presenting to the Planning Commission an urban wildfire planning document that they've been working on. And so I'm hoping that we can also do that next month, because urban wildfire goals and policies are now required. It's one of the new requirements in the GMA, and it's required for the land use element. So those would fit well together. And the Conservation District's been working with our fire district. So maybe we'll have a rep from the fire district here too. Third, I guess, and talking with Commissioner Warman, she requested that we do a kind of a detailed timeline of what we're going to be doing for the comp plan in terms of our goals, schedule wise. We're looking at the various elements and where's the end zone and all that. So I plan to bring you that timeline also next month. And then finally, just in talking in general with the commission, and especially now that we have 2 new members, I'm going to propose that we have a 1-day planning commission retreat. I'm going to get back to you by email about that. It's kind of a new idea, but it could likely be at the community center, although that hasn't been determined, but we were thinking it'd be a 1-day retreat. We would provide lunch A couple breaks throughout the day. And maybe a couple presentations. I'd like to, when I send you the email about this, to see your availability, get your feedback as to if there's anything that you'd like to see in the retreat, any kind of information or things that might be helpful. That's kind of where we are with it right now, but I'll be emailing you probably before the end of this week about it. One thing I will be wondering is whether it's something that you could do during the work week. If you cannot, we will likely be able to do it on a Saturday. Work week's preferable always, but we want to make sure we get as many people there as we can.
How long are we thinking? How long will the retreat be?
Just a 1-day deal, like
2 hours?
well, I was thinking it would, be at least 6 hours.
Okay.
Like a day. So kind of depends on what we decide the topics we want to explore. And we just have time to just talk about the commission and what we think it is and where it needs to go.
So are we looking to do this later this summer? Are we trying to project towards early summer or what's?
Well, I would like to do it in June if we can. Haven't really set a date on it. We just kind of thought about it yesterday, so it's a brand new idea, but. Somebody suggested Vegas. Hawaii, come on, our budget, so. And so that's all I have.
Quick question on the timeline. Are you just gonna have the proposed times as far dates as far as when each segment is gonna be proposed to you? Or are you gonna go so far as to mention it's gonna be presented like in June, but we're gonna work on it in July? Or do we need to even mention that like that?
I don't think I'm gonna do it that way. I'm gonna start at the end and work my way back. So the goal is that we should be having a draft to adopt by October 30th. Because we have a 60-day required review period from the Department of Commerce. So I'm gonna start there and work my way back, and as part of doing that, then I'm gonna evaluate, well, we need maybe a couple months where we have 2 meetings. So.
Thank you.
I have a question, quick question. Is it okay? There are a number of, or there's at least an open house or a general public meeting that, at least in prior cases, when we had the comp plan, when we had a draft before it even went to final draft, that we would bring in anybody that we could get to come in. They didn't always come in, but are you thinking of that being after the October date? Or will you put that into the schedule?
It can be after the October date because we're not planning to officially adopt it until December 30th. So I don't see that we need to, if we're really pinched for time just to get the draft done itself, it might be something that we do after the October date. I have to give it some thought.
I was just suggesting that it might be helpful to at least tentatively put down a time frame for this public meeting, because as we need to change it, we know that it was there that needed to be changed.
I might even actually have that. I have to go back and look at it for a while, but in our grant to Commerce, we might have even put a date in there. So I'll double check. That's it for me.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments for Gary? Okay, public comments. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the commission? Comments are limited to 3 minutes, 5 speakers. Comments on matters listed in the agenda are welcome. If anyone wishes to comment, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission? No, moving on. Unfinished business. Staff, is there any unfinished business that you have with from the last meeting?
No, sir.
Okay. Picking up on the discussion from last meeting, we were talking about revising the rules of procedures and conduct of business and potentially creating a working group. I was to basically go through research whether doing a working group with the quorum of the commission or just a three-person subcommittee to find out which was going to be more efficient. After doing research, speaking with city staff, it was agreed that just creating a subcommittee was going to be more efficient time-wise. So being as that it was approved the motion was approved last meeting. We're going to go ahead, create a three-person subcommittee to update the outdated rules of procedure, conduct of business, and to create new bylaws, which have never been done for the planning commission previously. It was brought to our attention that we did not have those. So we're also going to create bylaws for that. So with that being said, even though Commissioner Allen is absent, she stated an interest in being a part of that. Are there any other volunteers to be on that? Okay. And Chris, okay. Okay, so
Sorry, but I think if you have 4 people on it, it's a meeting.
yeah, but there's only 3. There's only Commissioner Allen.
Oh, you're not on it. I'm sorry. Chair.
I'm just gonna, if there's input, then,
Okay,
but
my fault.
it's just, it's just gonna be, let them do their thing and.
And so what do you want us to do with that committee? Do you want us to just keep minutes of what we?
Well, no, basically, it's just, you can meet, take the existing documents, update them, and then any other, what I just kind of wrote down some things, is that other commissioners can provide you with their input, just to kind of help include, but you don't have to keep minutes or anything. There's no parliamentary type stuff. It's just, meet at Starbucks, whatever, do your thing, come up with documents. And then when you come up with what you think is the final document, you'll bring it to a regularly scheduled meeting and then it'll be voted on. So that's basically how it is. And then that way it's recorded and everything.
Rich, maybe a suggestion. You've written up some good things and you've already collected the documents, maybe producing a packet that you then hand out to the 3 members.
As far the existing documents?
No, we're just being able to say, these are the existing documents, these are all my notes. And being able to give them something, like you just said, but Dana's not here, so just to be able to have everybody start from.
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of do an outline. I mean, if that's kind of what you're.
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if they don't mind, I mean, but I mean, they're free to run it however you
The
guys.
extra information would be beneficial.
So, I mean, okay, so. And then, let's see, so that's. Okay, so that concludes for unfinished business. Staff, is there any new business?
We have 2 items on the agenda. I'm not going to be deeply involved in either one of them luckily tonight. So I'm going to have Pat and Cody come up and discuss the capital facilities proposed updated table. This is the 10-year. They, along with Brad Chatwood, are primarily responsible for what's in there because they're much more in tune with things on the public works side of our department. So let you guys go.
Well, good evening, good afternoon, commissioners. I think I know a few of you, but I don't know if I know all of you. I'm Pat Hughes, I'm city engineer. I I'm going to be talking about some various projects that you have in the tables that you have before you. I'm gonna let Cody talk about a few of them on there. I'm gonna put you on the spot. You have to ask you there. There are park projects, there are transportation projects, there are water projects, sewer reclaim water projects, stormwater project, all kinds of things. There are two tables, table 3 and table 4. Table 3, I kind of look at as the short-term lookout for the next 10 years, and table 4 is for the next 10 years, from 2030 to 30. So what I've done, I've just pulled out a few projects out of here I'd like to talk about. I will be here all night talking to you about every one of them. And if you have any questions on any of those I did not talk about, please feel free to ask. That's what we're here for, okay? So I'd like to start with some of these transportation projects. These are more of the larger ones, the ones you are already aware of, and I just want to give you an update on those and where we're headed with those. The largest of one is the new Yelm Loop, the phase 2 Yelm Loop. As you're aware, that project finally, after 25 years, I won't believe it till I see it, but is finally going to be going to bid and construction late this fall. I think they have a tentative bid date of November 17th. So construction, I would expect, would actually begin here just after the first of the year. That project is, the plans for the project are nearly 100% complete. I'm expecting to get a final set of plans for that the second week in June. Make any final comments that we have on them, get them back to WashDOT. This November is a WashDOT project. The other one that's kind of closely linked to it, this is, it's a project that we've been waiting for the Yelm Loop to come through to build. That is a reconstruction of Roten Road. Roten Road will then become the main artery coming from the Yelm Loop to downtown Yelm once that loop is completed. So we have a consultant already on board, and we're beginning the preliminary design for the reconstruction of Roten Road. As far as a timetable goes, we're probably looking at a year before we can get through the preliminary design and the right-of-way acquisition. We're going to have to acquire a little bit of right-of-way from adjacent parcels. We don't have a lot of room in there. And then we will go to construction. I'm thinking probably in 27. That's a preliminary timetable for you on Roten Road. The Bald Hill 507 roundabout is well into its final design. That is also a WashDOT project, but we are taking it over at the city because, well, honestly, the state just doesn't have the resources right now to tackle that one. So we are undertaking the design and managing the construction for that roundabout. That, again, is in the final stages of design. I would expect with some additional right-of-way that we're going to need on each of the corners, not a lot. We're probably looking at late 26 begin construction on that. But again, the right-of-way phase can take a long time. So I'll keep you updated on that. What would be next? We've also started looking at an improvement at the intersection of Longmire and Yelm Avenue. Yelm Avenue West and Longmire, you know where I'm talking there by E.G. Skolting. We're exploring some different ideas of what to do about that intersection. We're currently working on what's known as an ICE, an ICE, that stands for an intersection control evaluation. The intent of that is to determine what we want to do there. What would be the best choice for that? Do we want to put in a traffic signal? All-way stop, or a new roundabout? So we're looking at different options. Obviously, we're looking at how it affects traffic, the cost, the available land that we have to have for it. So there's a lot of factors that have to be considered. So that is in the very early study phase right now. Another one that kind of ties in with a project, a parks project that we'll talk about in a few minutes, is the realignment of the intersection of Mill Road at 507. If you're familiar with that intersection, Mill Road comes in on very sharp angle to 507 at that point, and we're planning to realign that to make that come into as a 90-degree intersection with an additional turn lane and other improvements. So that's one that's on our next 10-year radar. Cody, I'm going to let you talk about the Washington McKenzie couplets. Can you give an update on that one?
Yeah, so the Washington McKenzie couplets, if you remember from our vision plan that the Planning Commission kind of helped craft several years ago. They talked about doing one-way couplets in the Washington McKenzie area, these two roads right here. We've applied for grant funding through the federal government. Liz, our grants manager, has done that. And it's looking like we might get some of that money, so we'll be able to do part of that project. Probably not the whole thing, but we'll continue to tackle it. The idea is to have two one-ways, rebuild sidewalks down 2nd and 3rd. And 4th Street and connect 4th Street to Mosman. So you'll have all this whole downtown area will kind of be revitalized with sidewalks and transportation areas. We look like we're gonna get some money, but not all of it we need, so more to come on that.
Okay. I'd like to talk about a couple parks projects. Those are the fun ones. And smiling, I can see. One is some upgrades to Longmire Park. Longmire Park is a very popular park, sports facility. And we have a consultant on board that is planning for some substantial changes in the park and improvements. What they're going to be exactly, I can't discuss or know yet because that's what we're exploring. What will work there, what do we need, and what can we fit in there? So that is on our short-term park project plan. That will be probably that'll be a pretty major upgrade. And the other one is the Veterans Memorial. I know there's been a lot of discussion about that. Maybe you do a better job on the Veterans Memorial than I can.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the Veterans Memorial, we did get state funding, $600,000 worth. We still need more, but that'll be enough to get us through the initial design and part of phase 1. That'll coincide with the realignment. That's that property on Mill Road, the old, if you remember, it used to be a biker bar, and then it was a veggie stand, and gosh, going back in time, it's been 20,000 different things. So that property will go into design. We actually have RFQs are due back next week. Yep, RFQs are due back next week for design. We'll get a consultant on board and we'll start engineering, designing that with the help of a couple committees and groups. Once that's done, we'll go to construction in 26 for phase 1. If we can get more money, we'll try to do all of it at once, but right now we're just going to shoot for getting phase 1 of that done next year.
Okay, a couple more park projects I just want to mention that are on a not too distant horizon here is some upgrades to the remainder of Cochrane Park. You probably remember a couple of years ago, we went in and did some modifications in there, reconstructed one of the ponds, installed new restrooms, built a new bridge, did some landscaping improvements. We're looking at what we're going to do with the rest of the park. What we're waiting for, and this ties into one of our sewer reclaim projects, is what improvements are we going to need to do out at Cochrane Park to accommodate our reclaimed water outflow? As you know, Cochrane Park is really part park, part a sewer outfall for us. So we're in the process now of determining what we're going to need to do with that. It appears likely we will need to be doing some enlarging of the rapid infiltration basins that are out there in the northwest corner of the park. But we don't know yet for sure what the function will be of the remainder of the ponds that are in there. They used to be used or are currently being used for additional polishing. But we have our new wastewater water reclamation facility under construction right now, which will largely take a place of a lot of that's out there. So we may very well be looking at an aesthetics type project out there where we're just going to reconstruct the ponds, repurpose the fish pond to a fountain pond, adding picnic shelters, lighting, trails, just really, that's a very popular park. So we're looking at doing some significant upgrades there, but again, I can't tell you what till we determine from the wastewater side of things what we're going to have to do. Wanted to mention the Yelm Prairie Line Trail. The trail phase 2 was completed last year, maybe the year before now. And we are now about to construct the very last piece of that, at least in this phase, to take the trail across the Swally River Bridge, the old railroad bridge. That has gone out for bids. We just received bids like yesterday or the day before, so we're going through those right now, trying to process what costs are gonna be. And that project is in the very near future. That will be going here very soon. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of our sewer reclaimed water projects. Again, I mentioned to you about Cochrane Park. We are going to need to determine through some studies that we're doing right now at Cochrane Park on the groundwater flow there. Where is the groundwater flowing? What is the quality of it? The new reclaimed water rules say that we cannot discharge reclaimed water into the ground at a quality any less than the current background levels. And that is tight. That's actually exceeds drinking water standards. So what we're trying to figure out right now is what are those background levels and which direction is the groundwater flowing so that we know what we're going to affect. And once we know that, we'll know if there's any additional improvements needed at our new wastewater or reclaimed water facility, sorry. So we'll have to make that determination. So those two projects, like I said, kind of go hand in hand. The other sewer project that will be coming as kind of an ongoing project, it's something that we are constantly working with, and that is upgrades to our existing collection system. There are some pipes that need to be upsized. There's some rerouting that needs to be done. That is kind of an ongoing process. Works very similar to our water distribution system upgrades. Every year or so, we'll go out for bids on replacement, some upsizing of water main, and we're going to be doing that for our sewer main here coming next. The only other water project I wanted to mention is construction of a new storage reservoir. You may be familiar with a brand new one that's under construction out here at 103rd and Walmart Boulevard. That is very near completion, and about 5 minutes after that opens up, we're going to be starting the design on the next water reservoir. Storage is our big issue for water here, so we are going to have to start looking at where that's going to go, you know, size, all that stuff. So we're going to be starting the preliminary design on the next water storage reservoir number 5. So I don't know, I got some stormwater projects that are coming up. I don't know if you want me to go through any of those. I didn't want to take all the time. I would like to see if Cody maybe wanted to mention a few things about any of these building or facilities projects. Again, putting you on.
Yeah, no, you're good. So the one thing to point out, the 55 acres of additional land for parks, that can include anything. You know, there's been talk about athletic, you know, the athletic complex, there's been talk about more parks. So that can include any of those things. It's not set and determined to be a specific type of park. So be aware of that with that 55 acres. And as we continue to grow, that number continues to increase, right? It's 55 acres today. When 3 more apartment complexes come up, we could say, hey, we need 60 acres now. So just be aware that number is constantly fluctuating.
Let's see here, anything on the buildings? Bring up,
I don't think we need to talk about those.
maybe not.
Yeah, the side, I will talk a little bit about sidewalks. If you've been down Central Business District, we just built Solberg sidewalk that connects McDonald's up to Mosman. That was a big one. A lot of kids use that, and we're continuing to do little sidewalk projects here and there. So every year we bite off a little bit of sidewalk. The next one we're doing is Middle Road. And then we're gonna probably do another couple sections down in the Central Business District, so.
So if you look over the 2 tables there, table 3, table 4, if there's anything that you see on there you're curious about, bring it up and see what we can help you with here. Yes,
I
sir.
do have a quick question. And I realize this is probably out of the scope of this, but being is that the majority of the UGA is going to be annexed before end of the year. Any of the water lines or septic sewer, going out to, that area, say like myself, I live in the current UGA. I mean, is there going to be any expansion to the water line going to those areas that's included in this, or is that something that's going to be a little bit further in the future?
Yeah, that falls under that category of distribution system upgrades that I talked about.
Okay,
We're gonna have to plan where those are gonna be. Everybody that's within the UGA but outside the city limits are all on well and septic. So as we come across some areas, for example, maybe a new subdivision may be coming in that area, we'll be extending water and sewer services to that area too. There's no specific plan yet for how and where we're gonna extend those. We're gonna let development drive a lot of that.
Okay.
But the answer to your question, short answer is yes, absolutely. We'll be eventually extending water and sewer out there. We have water right now that extends outside of the city limit, actually, a portion of it outside the UGA.
That's what I was gonna get to.
North Yelm. And a little bit of our sewer also extends outside the city limit, so. Yeah, we'll be looking at that.
thank you.
I was gonna mention that the Crystal Springs, since I've been working on the bridges, I've learned a lot and found that they're on city water. From Crystal Springs, it goes across the canal. And that's it.
That's one of those little short pieces that makes sense. There's another water main that runs south on Morris Road down to the Prairie Elementary School. That's a rather sizable main that goes on, but that's outside the city as well. So. Any other projects that you can see you'd like to talk about? If you go through this and you see anything you have a question about, or just shoot an email or give me a call. Again, I didn't want to take your whole time here talking about all these things, and it's fun to dream. It's fun to look ahead to see what's coming in the next 10, 20 years. So, and this will change, as we prepare our next comp plan a few years down the road. Obviously, we'll be scratching some things off the list that we've completed and adding some new things. So feel free to give me a call, or Cody, if you got any.
Are these the top estimates?
These are just ballpark estimates. That's all we have right now. We can only just make our best guess. For example, on a transportation project, we have kind of a rule of thumb about how much it costs to build a road per lane mile. So we'll use an estimate like that to come up with a ballpark number. So I wouldn't call it a top or bottom, it's just a ballpark estimate. Just to give you an idea of the magnitude.
Thank you.
Okay.
So in the introduction to the housing element,
Yes, sir. So I just have a couple comments and then let's turn it over to Andrew. Andrew has been the lead on this, on creating the draft that you're gonna be working on for the next month, so it's work. And the housing element is one of the parts of the comp plan that has had the most amount of legislation in the last 3-4 years. Amending the Growth Management Act to require, new things in the housing element. And this past legislations or past session is no exception. Still kind of waiting for the dust to settle to see what else there is, but there wasn't a lot of housing legislation again this last year. And it's almost always been centered around affordable housing. So you've seen 2 or 3 presentations over the last year and a half regarding House Bill 1220, which Andrew's going to talk about again today. We revised some code, you may remember, some of you, to address providing emergency shelters and permanent supportive housing, all those things that were required to go into our code to allow it in certain zones. That was part of House Bill 1220. When we did the housing action plan, our consultant came in, we discussed House Bill 1220 and all of its requirements. And then again, I guess last week, the RPC talked about it. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about it. So go ahead, Andrew.
Well, good evening, Planning Commission. So just a general kind of a broad overview of the housing element, and please take it, you have the full draft, please take it, review it, and then any comments I'd love to have just a week before Planning Commission, so we can have something to work on next week or next month. So a couple of the important new requirements with House Bill 1220, kind of the key phrase there is plan for and accommodate housing affordable to all income levels. And with that, we had to undergo 3 studies analysis. The housing allocation, we went with, along with our neighboring jurisdictions, City of Lacey, Tumwater, and Olympia, to provide a housing allocation, basically deciding how many housing units are needed in Yelm. And then the second part of that was the land capacity analysis, was, you know, the accommodating portion of that phrase. And then an anti-displacement analysis, and that was done by Uncommon Bridges. We also have House Bill 1337, and an overview is that bill is 100% geared towards ADUs, accessory dwelling units, so expanding housing options by easing barriers to the construction and use of accessory dwelling units. There's a long list in that RC in the new House bill. Some of those that are, high topic or high priority are allowing 2 ADUs per lot in zoning districts that allow for single family homes. Setbacks can't be more restrictive than the principal unit. Impact fees cannot be more than 50% of the principal unit. And we can't require street improvements as a condition of approval. In the housing action plan and in the draft element that you have, we also have a policy that would permit accessory dwelling units on existing non-conforming residential lots within the commercial zones. Within the housing allocation, 54,356 new housing units will be needed in Thurston County in the next 20 years. 29,053 will need to be affordable for low-income households. And the housing allocation determined that Yelm will need 5,170 units. Within the land capacity analysis, we had to analyze whether land and how it is zoned is a barrier to new affordable housing. CRPC found that Yelm, that zoning in Yelm has been and is currently a barrier to accommodating the affordable units that are needed. And with our current zoning, they have found a deficit of 2,145. So we have been accommodated more housing than we've been allocated more housing than we can accommodate based on our current zoning. And I'll get more into that a little bit later. The third analysis was that anti-displacement. And with that, we have to establish policies and regulations to address and begin to undo racially disparate impacts, displacement, and exclusion in housing caused by local policies, plans, and actions. With that, Yelm partnered with Lacey, Tumwater, and Olympia to conduct this analysis. The most significant displacement risk was categorized as physical displacement, which is the result of eviction, acquisition, rehabilitation or demolition of property, or the expiration of covenants on rent or income restricted housing. It had also found that roughly a third of all households in Yelm are cost burden. So that means renters and homeowners are spending more than 30% of their income on housing related expenses. And that there's also a 0% vacancy rate for rental units that are affordable to low income residents. The key findings on here is Yelm was allocated more housing than we can accommodate. Yelm has a significantly higher need than availability for residents making less than 80% AMI. We need to implement actions that address lack of capacity for housing needs. We need to add more zoning capacity for higher density housing types, such as townhomes, duplexes, triplexes, low rise apartments, and permanent supportive housing, and as well as ADUs. We also need to document programs and actions needed to achieve housing availability, including gaps in local funding, barriers such as development regulations and other limitations, and possibly adjust zoning upon annexation. We're currently working with TRPC right now to reanalyze, so to speak, or continue that analysis for us to help us determine if we have.
Are you accepting questions now or later? What is the process?
Broad level questions. I hope to answer them, and if not, we can come back and I'll get an answer to you.
I'm curious as to why there's no list in the list of all the types of housings that there's higher demand for. There's no manufactured housing or trailer type housing in there. Is that?
That would be considered a, it should be, it's not in there, but it should definitely be added. And I think it is in the actual comprehensive plan draft that I provided, but it might have just missed it.
Another question that I've got in regards to add on to what Ann was asking is, during the meeting on the 13th, that city council member Kaminsky, I believe it mentioned, was about condos. Is that just something with Washington State that there's a lack of condominiums being built? I mean, so other people, you know, because like she said that, you know, younger families, I mean, they can buy a condo, you know, and eventually sell that, get a foothold to buy something a little bit more expensive or whatever, but there's just not anything like that you know, lower income families can get into, that they can get, you know, some kind of foothold. Is there?
There's a reason for that. That's because Washington, this direction is not really aware or use condominiums very often at all. It's only been within the last few years that there's actually been some movement towards doing more condos. But if you take a look around, no, there are no condos.
Right. And that's what she was saying.
Yes.
But the point is, though, is that, I mean, is that something that we can look at
Should be.
to be able to try to get? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, so I'm in about 30 years of planning. I've never had to process a condominium. But my experience has been, you know, in the city of Olympia, which has to be an example. The condos are typically marketed as higher rate occupant, but I will say this. So in the last session, one of the bills I saw, which I think passed, which will be an interesting one to figure out, is that say you have an accessory dwelling unit on your property, which is affordable, they are going to allow them to do what is called a unit lot subdivision, where the person in that ADU can own the ADU and basically the ground that's beneath it, which is kind of like a condominium process.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, but I agree. I mainly see townhomes and row houses and.
But for you know, for when we're looking to help out as far as how much land we have, you know, high-rise condominiums help fit that bill. The only thing high-rise out here right now are apartment buildings.
Yeah.
You know, but it's the same, other than apartment buildings, it'd be just condominiums. You know, you would have a share of your own ownership, you know, and if the prices went up, you benefit by the prices. But I started in Hawaii 48 years ago. We only had condos. Okay, so,
Yeah,
you know, I was so used to it. And when I came over here, it was like
Yeah.
desert.
I was just thinking, you know, maybe something a little out of the box or whatever, and she had mentioned it, and I mean, she seemed pretty adamant, you know, during the meeting that it would be something that would be good for the community. I mean, as far as, you know, the lack of that type of housing.
well, we need a lot of tools and we need to examine a lot of tools. Some of them are controversial, like multifamily tax exemption programs. It's a real challenge because the new language in 1220 was planned for, they added the words and accommodate.
Yeah,
And so that's where this is all coming from. But because market rate housing is getting scooped up as fast as it can be built, it's really hard to convince somebody to say, well, why don't you build this and then rent it to someone for $1,000 a month less than you could easily get. So, I mean, we have to, you know, we're really looking at incentives like connection fees, impact fees. We did, if you may recall, the Berry Valley rezone, and that was in exchange for the developer agreeing to provide 8%. Is it 8%?
Yeah.
8% units affordable to the 60% or below area median income, which is, it's just a little chip, you know, I mean, it was kind of almost like a pilot project to see if we could do it and figure out the covenants to make sure it would be in perpetuity and what have you. The numbers that we have, Yelm is through the process that we went to for the housing allocation with TRPC at the helm. Yelm really kind of took the brunt of a lot of the housing allocation. And it was because of where we started with the amount of affordable housing we have now. So you see our numbers, and proportionate to the populations of the other cities, we need to provide a lot more. And, you know, and it's those numbers are, as we were saying when we were going through the allocation process, they're aspirational. Because we cannot make people build anything. We can just provide them the incentives and hope that they, you know, that they'll take them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any? Sorry.
No more from us, I don't think.
No, okay. Okay.
We have one more question. The last part of that one slide that talks about adjusting zoning with the annexation, this plan. I may have misheard when the Thurston County was talking about housing and the housing analysis that was done. But is it a possibility that the UGA is, I always thought the UGA was set in concrete. You just don't change the limits of the UGA. But if we need to provide housing that's greater than what we have in our, you know, when we extend into the UGA, is there a process you go through?
Yeah, I've done a couple of UGA expansions. You have to demonstrate that you have a population growth need to expand your UGA, and that you're going to be able to provide the services, et cetera, but it's certainly an option. I think also we just need to look at our current zoning to see, one of the reasons that we're still talking to TRPC is that they had some difficulty trying to evaluate in our land capacity analysis, trying to evaluate our capacity because of our master plan community zone. which is a blank slate. So they don't exactly know what's gonna go in there. So we're talking to them more about that too. We think we can get that number down a bit.
Is there any other questions, comments on that portion? Okay. I'd like to just take a minute and let the commissioners know that if at any time you make a comment that you would like to have included in the minutes for the record, please make sure to just make a statement that says that you would like this statement included in the record. And then that way we can make sure anything that you say that, you know, you want on the record that it can get included. Because otherwise, sometimes, you know, Hazel said that it was previously voted that there's an action type thing. So this way, if we want something specific included in the minutes, and we can just make a statement, I would like this statement included in the minutes, and then we can go from there. Okay, also, out of context here, I'd like to take a moment during this portion of the meeting to thank the residents of Yelm for viewing the recordings of the Planning Commission. Each member of the Planning Commission volunteers their time for the benefit of the city of Yelm. The Planning Commission operates with complete transparency. The Planning Commission does not approve any development within the city of Yelm. No planning commissioner benefits financially or otherwise from their service, only for the sake of civic duty. And residents are encouraged to attend the monthly scheduled meetings on the third Tuesday of every month. Moving on, number 10, public hearing, none. Are there any subcommittee reports?
No, just, well, what Pat already covered, that we're getting the trail extended across the river, across the Nisqually, and it's gone out for bid. We've gotten the bids back, and so anytime now there'll be a decision that'll go to council for construction.
And then I'd like to ask Chris, can you say something about the tree board?
Yeah, good afternoon, commissioners. So we had a fantastic Arbor Day celebration last month. There was a lot of very beautiful art on display from the local schools. We gave away seedlings. And I think we're going to meet again in September and kind of discuss what went well, what didn't go well, how we'd like to improve or change the celebration for next year. But I feel like all in all, it was a great success. We had a very nice turnout. It was a beautiful day. Participation. I worked with Lynn Roy and Mayor DePinto, City of Lacey, on putting that together. We had a fantastic employee from the Parks Department that came and set everything up and took everything down. So everything really just went seamlessly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
No, second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Against, say nay. Meeting is adjourned at 4:53 PM. Thank you.